Good morning, students. How are you all? Hope all of you are fine at home and doing your studies also. So now let's start with our social science class. And in social science, we are studying subject history. In history, we are right now discussing chapter 3 in the earliest cities. We are discussing about Harappan civilization, Harappan cities. Yes, and in this we have already discussed about the life in the Harappan cities. We have discussed about the art and craft in the Harappan cities, and in earlier class we have discussed in search of raw materials, that how the Harappan people were searching for raw materials, and how they were searching for what type of food the people in these cities were eating or taking. As well as we have also discussed in our earlier class about a closer look of Harappan town in Gujarat, that is Dholavira and Lothal. So we have discussed about Dholavira town and Lothal town of Harappan towns in Gujarat. Yes, so we have discussed about two cities, Dholavira and Lothal. Now in the earlier class we have discussed about the search of raw material, that how the people of Harappa were bringing the raw materials such as wood or metals, and these farmers and herders, how they were converting this raw material into finished good, like they were producing cotton. Farmers were producing cotton, and with the help of cotton they were producing clothes. Yes, and how they were bringing the raw metals from different parts of the places, different places, like gold, silver, precious stone, how they were bringing them from distant places, and then whatever they were bringing as a raw material, whatever precious things were there, that all were taken by the rulers. Yes, like ornaments, the precious stones and the ornaments were taken by the rulers. And in when we were talking about the food for the people in the cities, the people here in Harappa were basically they were farmers and herders, so they were growing crops and rearing animals. And when they were growing crops and rearing animals, these farmers and herders supplied food to craft person. Yes, and scribes and rulers in the city. And we also know that as they were the farmers, so they were growing wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseeds and mustards. So these were the crops which were grown by Harappan people in these cities. And how they were growing these crops? These crops were grown with the help of new tool which they were having, known as plow. Plow was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. Yes, and as there was not enough rainfall in these areas, so the people were using for growing crops, for irrigation purpose, they were using the stored water. Whatever stored water they were having, they were supplying that water into the fields when they were growing the plants and crops in their cities. Yes, and then in earlier chapter, we studied about a closer look of Harappan towns in Gujarat, like we studied about Dholavira. In Dholavira city, which has Dholavira city is where it is located in Khadirbat, yes, in Rann of Kutch. There was fresh water and fertile soil available in this city. And Dholavira was divided into three parts, and each part was surrounded with massive stone walls with entrance through gateway. So we have studied about this Dholavira, and in Dholavira we found the archaeologists found a unique kind of large letters of Harappan scripts that was carved out with white stone and Harappa, perhaps inlaid in wood. And in Lothal, when we talked about Lothal was situated near areas where raw materials such as semi-precious stones were easily available. It was basically on the tributaries of Sabarmati in Gujarat and close to the Gulf of Kambat. Yes, we talk about Lothal. Lothal is a storehouse, it is a workshop, it has a building that was found here by probably a workshop for making beads of, and where it was found that pieces of stone, half-made beads, tools for bead making and finished beads have also been found here by the archaeologists. Yes, so till this we have discussed in earlier class. Now we will do what were the topics which we will discuss now will be the mystery of the and that how these Harappan cities come to an end. What was the mystery behind that? What was the things behind that? Behind the end of this Harappan civilization or these cities? Around 3900 years ago, we find the beginning of a major change. So, if we talk about these cities around 3900 years ago, a major changes came into existence or it began. People stopped living in many of the cities. Writing, seals, and weights were no longer used. So, writing and seals and weights were no longer used about around 3009 years ago. Raw materials bought from long distances became rare, so people were not going to bring the raw materials from different places. And in Mohenjo-daro we find that garbage peeled up on the streets, the drainage system broke down, and new less impressive houses were built even over the streets. So earlier they were having a very good drainage system, and the houses were connected to the drainage system very perfectly. But as the time passed, the drainage system broke down, and the new houses which were built were not built very were not very impressive, and they were also built over the streets. Why did all this happen? We are not sure. So, or why this was happening? No one was sure. We were not able to find why this all was happened. Why this all happened there? Some scholars suggest that the river dried up. So this was a reason that the people were having all the things in uneven manner. Others suggested that there was deforestation. So other scholars suggest that there were deforestation. Maybe forests were not there, and they were all because of deforestation. This could have happened because fuel was required for baking bricks and for smelting copper ores. So this maybe happened because the fuel was required, the wood, the trees wood was required to bake the bricks which were used in making the buildings or constructing the buildings, and for smelting, or smelting means to melt, yes, smelt copper ores to make different ornaments. So beside grazing by large herds of cattle, sheep and goat may have destroyed the green covers. So some of them were thinking that may be possible because of the grazing of large herds or cattle, sheep and goats. Maybe it could be one reason that the whole green area and covered pasture area was being destroyed by these grazing herd of cattle. But no one was knowing exactly what happened at that time. So that's why we say that it is a mystery of an ant, that no one knows the exact situation or the exact reason why there was an ant for these cities. In some areas there were floods, so some were thinking that maybe in some areas there were floods, but none of these reasons can explain the end of all these cities. So all these were only an exemptions. Yes, all those were only we were taking as a thinking that maybe it will this would be a reason, maybe that would be a reason, but these all reasons were not a correct explanation to the end of all these cities. Flooding or a river drying up would have had an effect in only some areas. So if we say that flooding would may have occurred in these cities, so we can say that flooding or river drying up would have had an effect in only some of the areas only, not on all the cities. So this cannot be a reason, but we don't know what it was the exact reason for the end of these cities. It appears as if the rulers lost control. In any case, the efforts of the change are quite clear. So, some were thinking that it may be possible that the rulers who were ruling these cities would have lost the control, and in any case, the effects of the changes are quite clear. So there were changes in these cities. Sites in Sindh and West Punjab present day we call it Pakistan. So all those sites which are there in Pakistan were abandoned, while many people moved into newer, smaller settlements to the east and the south. So many of the people moved from to the new settlement from these sites, from these cities. They moved to the smaller and newer settlement which were there in towards the east and the south of the subcontinent. You will read about them in chapter 5 and 8. So all these where they moved in the different cities and settlement, you will read about these people in chapter 5 and 8. New cities emerged about 1400 years later. So all the new cities emerged about 1400 years later. So when these people started settling towards the south and the west, so all these cities emerged, and these all cities emerged about 1400 years later. Yes. So settled towards the east and south. So and the new cities which emerged were about 1400 years later. Now we will study about the about Egypt. Find Egypt in your atlas. So you can see Egypt in the atlas. Egypt is here. So Egypt you can see on the, yes, on the west side. Yes. So on the west side you are seeing Egypt. So on the west side when you are seeing Egypt, most of the Egypt is a dry desert. So most of the area of Egypt is a dry desert except for the land along the river Nile. So you can see river Nile is also flowing in Egypt, and across the river Nile, the places near to the river Nile were only not a desert. Around 5000 years ago, kings ruled over Egypt. So around 5000 years ago, there were kings who were ruling Egypt. These kings sent armies to distant lands to get gold, silver, ivory, timber, and precious stones. So these kings, what they were doing, they were sending their armies for to different land places to go to collect the gold, silver, ivory, timber, and precious stones. They also built huge tombs. So you can see in this picture a tomb is there. So these rulers built huge tombs known as pyramids. So these were known as pyramids. The huge tombs were known as pyramids. When they died, the bodies of kings were preserved and buried in these pyramids. So when the rulers died, so the bodies of kings were preserved and buried in these pyramids only. These carefully preserved bodies are known as mummies. So what are mummies, students? Now you understood. These carefully preserved bodies are known as mummies. The king's body which was buried in these pyramids were carefully preserved in these pyramids, and these carefully preserved bodies are known as mummies. So you have been heard about mummies. Now you know. Now you are able to know what are mummies. Yes, a large number of objects were also buried with them. So with these mummies, with the dead body of the kings, a large number of objects were also buried with them. These included food and drink, clothes, ornaments, utensils, musical instruments, weapons, and animals. So the people were also burying these all things with with the mummies or the preserved dead bodies. Like they were burying, they buried food and drinks, clothes, ornaments, utensils, musical instruments, weapons, and animals with a dead person. Sometimes even serving men and women were buried with the rulers. So when the ruler or a king was died, so these things were also buried with the ruler. And sometimes what happened, the people were also burying the serving men and women with the ruler. These are amongst the most elaborate burials known in world's history. So these were among the most elaborate burials where all these things were kept with a dead person in the pyramid, in, yes, and with the mummy, known in the world history. Do you think king would have needed these things after death? Yes, students, tell me. Do you think that after the death of a king, if we are burying all these things, ornaments, food, drinks, musical instruments, and as sometimes we are also burying a serving man and woman with the dead body in the pyramid. So the king needs all these things. Yes, after that, do you think it is true? No. So the king would not have been needed these things after that death, but the people were thinking that maybe after that there is a life, and if a person, if a king will require anything, he can use that. Now we will study about the keywords. These keywords you have to write in the notebook, students, and then you have to learn. Yes, these are the keywords. These are the important words in this chapter. So first keyword is city. What is city, students? Yes, a city is a large human settlement. It can be defined as a permanent and densely settled place with administratively defined boundaries whose members work primarily on non-agricultural tasks. So what is a city? A city is a large human settlement where people in large numbers live. It can be defined as permanent and densely settled place. So the humans can settle there permanently, and a city is a densely settled place which has a administrative defined boundaries whose people work primarily on non-agricultural tasks. Now we will talk about citadel. What is citadel, students? The citadel is small but higher man-made mound at the archaeological site of Mohenjo-daro. The mound is built out of bricks and is located in the western part. So citadel is a small but it is higher, and it is man-made mound at the archaeological site of Mohenjo-daro. This mound is built out of bricks and is located in the western part of Mohenjo-daro. Now we will talk about third keyword of this chapter, that is ruler. The leader of a country is a ruler. So who is a ruler? A leader of a country is a ruler. If you are a queen or a sultan, you are a ruler. Besides person who rules or governs. So who governs the place, who governs the country is a ruler, and if you are a sultan or a queen, you are a ruler. So now you understood who are rulers. The fourth is scribe. Scribe is a person who knew how to write, who helped prepare the seals and perhaps wrote on other materials that have not survived. So scribe were the people. Yes, scribe is a person, is a people, is a person who knew how to write, who helped prepare the seals and perhaps wrote on other materials that have not survived right now. Now we have the fifth keyword, that is craft person. Who are craft persons? Yes, students, now you would be knowing who are craft persons. Craft person is a person, maybe he is a man or she is a woman. So a craft person can be man or a woman. A person who is skilled at making things by hand. So a person who is skilled, who is trained to make things by hand, are called craft persons. So metal, now sixth keyword is metal. What is a metal? Metal is a material that when freshly prepared, polished or fractured shows a lustrous appearance and conduct electricity and heat relatively well. So a metal is a material which when it is used in a natural way, it is being prepared, it is being polished, it is being cut into different designs and shapes, that it shows a very good lustrous appearance, very attractive appearance, and it is a good conductor of electricity and heat as well. Examples of metals are aluminum, copper, iron, tin, gold, lead, silver, titanium, uranium and zinc. These are some of the examples of metals. Now we will move to our seventh keyword, that is seal. What is seal, students? A seal is a device for making an impression in wax, clay, paper or some other medium, including an embossment on paper, and is also the impression thus made. So a seal is a device used for making an impression, any sign we want to make in on wax with the help of wax, clay, paper on some of the medium or including anywhere. If we are making any impression, any sign, any design with a device, that is known as the seal, and this seal is being used to emboss on paper and is also the impression thus made. So that is a kind of impression being made on anything. Now, eighth, specialist. Who are specialists? A specialist is a person who is trained to do only one kind of work. For example, cutting stone or polishing beads or carving seals. So, a specialist is a person who is trained to do only one kind of work. Only one kind of work he is trained to do. Either he is very good in cutting stones, either he is very good in polishing beads, or he or she is very good in carving the seal. Then only he is a specialist. If he is a trained person in one work. Now we will move to our ninth keyword, student, that is raw material. What is raw material? Raw material are substances that are either found naturally, such as wood or ore of metals, or produced by farmers or herders. So raw material is a substance that are either found naturally, such as wood or ore of metals, or produced by farmers or herders, and these raw materials are being converted into finished goods. Yes, and then that finished goods, that final product is being used by the people. Now we have 10th keyword, that is plow, a tool used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. So what is plow? Plow is a tool. Yes, it is a tool which is used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. And plow was used by the Harappan people to grow crops. When they were growing crops, so they were digging the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds so that the crops can be grown. Now we have our 11th keyword of this chapter, that is irrigation. And what is irrigation, students? I know some of you would be knowing that what is irrigation, but let's understand once again. Irrigation is the watering of land to make it ready for agriculture. So when we are making a land ready for agriculture, for growing crops, we require water, and that is known as irrigation. So irrigation is the watering of land to make it ready for agriculture. Yes, so today we have discussed about the keywords, and now we will discuss about some important dates of this chapter. So the first important date is about 7,000 years ago there was a cotton cultivation at Mehergarh. So about 7,000 years ago the cultivation of cotton at Mehergarh started. Cultivation means growing. About 4,700 years ago, beginning of these cities, so these cities were there developed. About 4,700 years ago these cities were developed, Harappan cities were developed. About 3,900 years ago, beginning of the end of these cities. So there was a beginning of these, and the mystery of the end of these cities began in about 3,009 years ago, but no one knows what was a mystery, what was the exact reason for the end of these cities. Yes, we have already discussed this in this class only. And the last important date which we have to remember about this chapter is about 2500 years ago. So what happened about 2500 years ago? The emergence of other cities. So there were new cities developed about 2500 years ago, when the end of Harappan cities were there about 3,900 years ago. So their emergence, the beginning of other cities started about 2,500 years ago. So today, students, we have discussed the important dates which we have to learn from this chapter. We have discussed about the keywords which we have to learn in this chapter, and we have also discussed the mystery of the end of the cities, that what was a mystery behind the end of these Harappan cities. What happened? Well, no one knows the exact reason, but some of the scholars were saying something, some of that people were saying something about the mysteries. So we have already discussed this chapter. We have done the explanation of this chapter. We have done the keywords of this chapter today. We have done the important dates also today. So just learn these keywords and important dates, and in the next class we will discuss about the question answers of this chapter. Till then, thank you and have a nice day, students.